As you get older, your net worth increases. A couple things change as you grow up. You have kids. Kids are really expensive. But when they leave home, not only do you party a little bit, your expenses go down. At the same time, as you age, your income rises. So when that last kid leaves home, most people pay down whatever mortgage is left on their house in very short order, and then they're just left with gobs of cash, which they invest. That peaks, maxes out, in the final decade before you retire. Normally, this doesn't matter, because normally this is what our demographic profile looks like. Children on the bottom, young adults, mature adults, retirees at the top. So when a thin sliver of 65-somethings retires, it's not a big deal, because there are more people who are 64 below that, and 63 below that, and so on. And it's the same proportion every year. So there's not a shock to the system. It's just part of life. But we changed that. When World War II ended, we changed the way economics work, because we used our Navy to patrol the global ocean so that any country and any company could go anywhere in the world and interface with any partner and access any market and any commodity. And as we got access to everything, we all decided to get a little bit wealthier, and so we all specialized. Some places focus on corn, some on semiconductors, some on iron ore. And then you sell that on the international market and use that money to buy whatever you don't produce yourself. Before then, if you were, say, the state of Florida, you would have to be limited to what you had locally. If you couldn't grow corn, you didn't get corn. If you couldn't produce natural gas, you didn't have electricity. But once you globalize, everyone could move up. And that changes how you live, because it means we moved off the farm and into the city to take those industrial and services jobs. When you live on the farm, kids are free labor. You have all of them you can. When you're in the city, kids are really, really expensive habits. And we can do math, so we have fewer. Here's our demographic structure today. Now, the baby boomers are the largest generation we've ever had. They have dominated the American condition for the last 70 years. When they all entered the workforce, they swamped it. And now they're all entering retirement. On average, the boomers in the United States will retire in the fourth quarter of this year. From a financial point of view, that's a bit of a suicide pact, because they have been, for the last few years, the most wealthy they will ever be. They've provided capital to the system that has triggered all kinds of expansions everywhere. And now they're retiring, which means they're going to liquidate all their stocks and all their bonds and go into T-bills and go into cash and just go away. We are moving right now from the most liquid financial environment we have ever known to something almost at the extreme opposite end. From January of last year to December of next year, the cost of capital in the United States will increase by at least a factor of 5, independent of anything the Federal Reserve does. People worry about business plans changing when financing costs go up by 50 or 100 basis points. Your starting plan should be for 1,000. It's going to be at least that tight. The Federal Reserve, for other reasons, may tighten further. Now, that's the finance side. Let's talk about the labor side. This is the largest workforce we've ever had. They're all leaving. That is the primary driver of the inflation we're dealing with. It's a labor shortage. We're taking the largest, most skilled generation we have, and they are leaving stage right. Their replacement, their immediate replacement, is Gen X. This is my generation. I'm part of the second smallest generation ever. And when we look at the boomers, we pretty much just feel a mix of wrath and pity. You know, there's a whole presentation right there. But let me focus on one thing, family. When the boomers entered the workforce, there were so many of them, they pushed down the cost of capital. They competed with each other for jobs. But it still wasn't enough. A lot of them had problems making ends meet. So a second spouse had to enter the workforce as well. That pushed down the cost of capital even more. That put pressure on the family unit. This is the primary reason why the boomers have the highest divorce rate in our history. Gen X looks at that and is like, oh, no, sir, that is not us. For us, our time and our family are at least as important as our money. We're going to be single income households. We have much more durable marriages because of it, but it has come at a price. You've got 800 gajillion boomers and like 400 Xers, and we're the low men on the totem pole. So we got horrible wage increases for our entire adult life until now, because now all the boomers are going away. And even if all Gen Xers wanted to work, and we do not, there aren't enough of us to fill all those shoes. So we now are seeing the highest increases in compensation in American history. And it has at least another 10 years to run. So Xers, we're finally having our day. The rest of you know this is wage inflation, and you can suck it. All right, next generation, the Zoomers. These are the new kids on the block. These are the Gen X's kids. They are not millennials. So we all know the story. Millennials were raised to be told that they were special, and as a result, they're a little quirky. Zoomers were not told they were special. Zoomers were told that they were behind, that they can't rely on anyone, that they have to be better. Not better than the millennials, that's easy. Better than everyone. We told them that we're going to keep track of the score at the soccer game. We're going to write it down in a little book. We're going to read it to you every night. And when you're 17 and a half, get the hell out of my house. They're neurotic. They're hardworking. They're pathologically hardworking. They're the most medicated generation we've ever had. They have the highest suicide rate we've ever had. Their dream job is to work in a closet in the dark, coding by themselves. They're very loyal workers, but they never want to meet their employer, ever. If you need coders, this is great. If you need anything else, crap. Because they're also the smallest generation we've ever had. If you subtract the Zoomers coming in from the Boomers that are leaving, this calendar year, that's a shortage of 400,000 workers. That number is going to increase every year until 2034, when it'll peak at about 1 million. So we know exactly what the labor force in terms of size is going to be like, because they're all here already. And then finally, you've got the millennials. Now, they've got some positive attributes. They're collegiate, they're cooperative, they work well in groups, they're good with the people skills, they're great managers, all true, all supported by the data. But the negative stereotypes are also accurate. Live at home with their parents. Come in at the crack of 1 o'clock on a Tuesday for their first hour of work. Entitled, lazy. Also backed up by the data for half of them. The other half have always done everything we always demanded of them. They graduated from college in 3.5 years. They went straight into the workforce. They didn't go to Europe for a decade to find themselves. And as a result, they were utterly screwed. Because when the financial crisis hit in 2008, they were the last ones in the door, so they were the first ones kicked out. Whether it's because they did everything right or everything wrong, your average millennial lost 4 years of work experience in his or her 20s. They will never get that back. They are the least skilled worker group we have ever had for their age bracket. They will be behind until the day they retire. The hope for the labor market, the hope that we will maybe get back to where we were in 2019 at the peak, still lies with the millennials, indirectly. The hope lies with their children. A large generation generates a large generation. The millennials will generate a large echo generation. We just have to wait for them to grow up, get trained, and enter the workforce, which will happen en masse in the year 2042. So if you don't like today's labor conditions, tough. Don't wait 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or 90 months. It's going to get worse every year for at least the next 12. And we won't get back to where we were 3 years ago for over 20. So hire with what you have, work with what you have, train with what you have. It's not going to improve.